One of the first concerns that comes up after the center loosens is responsibility, not as an idea, as a real-world concern. People wonder, quietly or out loud, if there's no central self anymore, who is responsible? This question matters because responsibility is often treated as the final safeguard. Even people who are comfortable questioning identity will still say, maybe the self isn't what I thought. But responsibility has to stay. Otherwise, things fall apart. This episode is about clarifying why responsibility does not disappear when ownership dissolves, and why it often becomes clearer, lighter, and more reliable. Responsibility is usually understood as something carried by a person. You are responsible because you chose, because you intended, because you decided, because the outcome belongs to you. Responsibility is tied to authorship. I did this. This was my decision. This reflects on me. That framework feels solid because it has been reinforced for most of a lifetime, but it quietly assumes something that goes mostly unexamined. That responsibility must originate from a central self. When that assumption starts to dissolve, fear shows up. The fear isn't really about irresponsibility. It's about loss of containment. People worry that without a self managing things, harm will be ignored, obligations will be dismissed, care will become optional, consequences will no longer matter. Responsibility is imagined as the glue holding behavior together. But responsibility is not the glue. It is the response. If you look closely at how responsibility actually appears, you'll notice something important. Responsibility does not begin with the thought, I am responsible. It begins with contact. A situation appears. Something needs attention. A response arises. This happens before any story about ownership forms. A child cries. Care happens. A mistake is noticed. Correction happens. Something breaks. Repair happens. Response is immediate. Ownership comes later. Ownership adds a story. It personalizes the event. It assigns moral weight to identity. It stretches the moment across time. Sometimes that story is useful for social coordination, but it is not required for responsible action. In many cases, ownership actually interferes with responsibility. It introduces defensiveness, justification, shame, self-protection. These reactions do not improve response. They slow it down. When the center is absent or transparent, responsibility still functions, but it is experienced differently. It no longer shows up as, I must be responsible. This reflects on me. I am at fault. Instead, it shows up as, this needs attention. Something needs to be addressed. A response is required. Responsibility becomes situational rather than personal. This does not weaken it. It sharpens it. A common concern here is accountability. People ask, if there's no ownership, how does accountability work? Accountability does not require a metaphysical self. It requires clarity and consequence. If harm occurs, it is acknowledged. If something goes wrong, it is addressed. If a pattern repeats, adjustment is needed. None of this depends on identity. In fact, accountability often improves without a center because there is less impulse to defend a self-image. Another distinction becomes clear here. Guilt is not the same as responsibility. With a center, responsibility is often fused with guilt. Guilt is treated as proof of care, but guilt does not correct behavior. It personalizes it. Without a center, correction still happens. Learning still happens. What fades is self-condemnation. Mistakes become information rather than verdicts. This allows behavior to change more easily. This difference shows up clearly in work. When identity is involved, mistakes threaten self-worth. Feedback feels personal. Pressure increases. Defensiveness appears. When the center is absent, mistakes are simply data. Something didn't work. Something needs adjustment. Tasks still matter. Standards still apply. Expectations still exist. But the emotional load is lighter. Responsibility shifts from being about who you are to being about what's needed. This also applies to ethical behavior. There is a common belief that morality requires a strong self. But ethical behavior does not originate from moral identity. It originates from sensitivity. Humans are affected by harm. We notice imbalance. We respond to distress. This sensitivity does not require a story about being a good person. In fact, moral identity often interferes with ethical response. Protecting an image can become more important than addressing harm. Without a center, that incentive weakens. Response becomes more direct. Care roles make this especially visible. Parents do not care for children because of philosophical ownership. They care because response arises. Even exhaustion does not eliminate responsibility. It only reveals limits. Without a center, care does not disappear. It becomes more grounded, less idealized, less heroic, more realistic. Another fear shows up here. People assume that without a center, consequences disappear. They do not. Actions still have effects. Systems still respond. Relationships still adjust. What disappears is personalization. Instead of, I am bad because this happened, there is, this led to that. Adjustment is needed. This is how learning actually works. When responsibility is no longer owned, it is no longer heavy. It becomes movement. A situation appears. Response happens. Adjustment follows. Life continues. No internal trial. No identity scorekeeping. Responsibility becomes cleaner because it no longer needs to be carried. This is not about avoiding responsibility. It is about removing the false idea that responsibility must sit on a central self. When that idea falls away, responsibility becomes more immediate, more honest, more effective. If you notice responsibility continuing without ownership, nothing has gone wrong. Ethics have not collapsed. Care has not disappeared. Something unnecessary has been removed. Responsibility has returned to its natural form. Responsibility does not belong to anyone. It belongs to situations. And when the center is gone, responsibility does not disappear. It becomes lighter, clearer, and more direct.